Logan Paul has just made a
I need to figure out how to get that transition to actually have some noise. How's it going, everybody? Meet, Ranter, Dream, glad to see you here for the first time. And, of course, Maffy. So, today, as I said, well, I mean, it's right there in the title, we are going to be reacting to The Fall of Eternity, which is the lore of friend of the channel, Pirate Perpetuum, excuse me. His whole lore that he has set up. I have seen part 1, and part 1 is phenomenal. Part 1 actually made me want to start creating again. And I did realize I forgot to set something up on the other the other broadcast. So we are going to and give me just 1 second. I am sorry for the delay, y'all. Also, it gives people a chance to filter in. This is a damn audiobook. There's no other way to put it. But the guy does amazing work, and he's a great person on top of it. So, you know. No, Ollie, you are never late. I keep telling people. Late implies there's a time you're supposed to be here. Alright? We don't do that. So, just give me just a second. And I'm still setting up. I forgot to get something set up for actually being able to react. Reactions aren't normally my thing. But I have had some people tell me that they want me to try and focus on less gameplay stuff. I take offense to that. No, I don't. Yeah, no, I can understand. I've seen my gameplay. I understand why y'all want me to cut back on that. But grab your popcorn. As I said, I've seen part 1. I haven't seen part 2. We might wind up cutting like an hour early tonight because part 3 of this is 2 hours and 40 minutes on its own. We're not fitting the whole damn thing into one episode. There's nothing I can do about it. So, no more beating around the bush. I don't see why we should. Let me slide that on over here. It shifts a couple things around. And part of me wants to wait to see if Pyrite finishes up his stream, but I ain't gonna make you guys wait. You don't throw direct shade. I throw as much direct shade as I damn well please. But yes, I do appreciate that. And while that is true, I'm actually fairly confident in my gaming abilities. So I will be pausing this a fair amount of times to add my own ramblings. But I'm going to try and mostly let the story speak for itself. As I said, I have seen the first one, which is a half hour. So you're going to get more genuine first-time reactions from part 2. In any case, as I said, grab yourself some popcorn. Let's enjoy us an audiobook. If y'all are worried about watching, like I said, I've seen the first. So a lot of the visuals are still images, which, don't get me wrong, the images are gorgeous. But you can get away with just listening. Hi, Aries. He's come because he hears me yapping. Here we go.
The Fall of Eternity. Era of Diabolos, Age of Raken, year 670.
And before you ask,
Prologue.
Sadly, there are no subtitles. Oh.
In the realm of Terra Picatus, demons reigned supreme. At the behest of the Demon King, 12 noble houses ruled the many regions of this realm. Some houses held control through domination and military might. Others did so through the employment of powerful hereditary magic. House Perpetuum was one of those magical houses.
I already want to point out something. I need to give Pyrite immense credit. I don't know how he got this map, but map making is one of the 2 hardest parts of creating a world for me. I don't know what it is, but I struggle with making like a physical setting. And he's done very well with this.
Once the most powerful house in all Terra Picatus, the great fall of Perpetuum 1,000 years ago saw them pushed back to all but the last vestiges of their territory. Now, the quiet mountains of Inmornahe in the far northeast are all this once great house has left. For the last millennium, House Perpetuum's casters and the legendary Spellweaver Council have studied and perfected their powerful summoning and teleportation magic.
I'll back that up just a few frames so I don't cut them off. I will say, too, the one thing this does make me wonder, my initial thought, is this looks like a single continent, and the background of it looks like it's hinting at mountains, but it makes me wonder what else is in the world of Terra Picatus. And forgive my butchering. I can't speak worth a damn.
Isolationist after the fall, this house refused any attempts from the larger military houses to share this magical power through marriage. And while this refusal was often met with disdain by the greedy houses outside, the mountains surrounding the Perpetuum Keep, filled to the brim with summoned stone Goliaths and teleportation runes, kept any invader far from the old house. That was, until they were betrayed by one of their own. For reasons unknown, Spellweaver Sargal of the Spellweaver Council betrayed his people and guided House Imperiosis through the labyrinthian mountain pass, right to Perpetuum's doorstep. With the traitor's guidance, Imperiosis has come to finish what began all those years ago. Act 1.
Oh, nope, not that one.
Pyrite tightened his grip on his bloodstained glaive. The bridge connecting the Perpetuum Keep to the mountain pass stretched.
Again, look at this art. This art is amazing. And not to say anything bad, not to disparage. Hey, Matriarch. Hey, Toma. I take it Pyrite's wrapping up. But again, not to disparage anything or say anything bad. Wally! Oh no, the rage. Shin. God, too many people. Here it comes. Look, it really is. Like, jokes aside, the art is amazing. Pyrite, we just got done. Oh god, so many. Bear. But you can't get over this, and of course, Pyrite's narration is amazing on it.
Out before him. It wasn't a particularly large bridge, but that was by design. When the vanguard of House Imperiosus had attacked, they had to funnel in to cross the near bottomless pit the bridge spanned. Now, the 50 or so legionaries littered the black brick.
That seemed too easy,
said Spellweaver Osgodoth as he walked up beside Pyrite. His purple hooded robes embroidered with the silver Perpetuum covered his wrinkled features. The towering stone behemoth he had summoned stomped past them. It returned to the head of the bridge, its club-like arms stained with Imperiosus blood. It was joined by 4 considerably smaller stone Goliaths. Pyrite cast him a sidelong glance. That was only their vanguard. Auxiliaries, most likely. They were probing us. Probably wanted to see if we would just surrender, Pyrite told the ancient demon. Osgodoth was a powerful caster, and he was fairly well-traveled, but he lacked knowledge of battle. He had, however, been the only one from the Spellweaver Council to volunteer to help defend the keep. The rest of them were busy evacuating the house's denizens via ritual teleportation.
Sorry.
Osgodoth looked at the bodies lying motionless on the bridge.
But if that was merely a probing attack, why did they not retreat when they realized they could not win?
Pyrite glanced past the bridge at the path beyond. He saw one of his fellow mercenaries approaching. Because they knew a worse fate awaited them, had they done so. Osgodoth shuddered at the thought.
Give them this. That is a... I don't want to say it's a healthy way, but it is absolutely a... Will you stop that? It is absolutely a strong way to run an army, of making sure that your people never retreat, because... Oh, no, not... What is my spelling today? There we go. I think I have one for Kuma. But it really does also speak a lot of the, not just the mindset of the Imperium, but also their forces. You can really tell that means that they have way more people than they need.
To be able to spend lives so needlessly,
he breathed. The armored demon ran up to the pair.
Pyrite, they're coming. At least 10,000 by my count,
came a breathless female voice from beneath the visored helmet. Raising the visor, she added,
Lord Segred is leading them.
A nervous chill ran through Pyrite, and his eyes grew wide. Osgodoth looked between the pair, confused.
What? What does that mean?
Pyrite gave a long breath out. If Lord Segred Imperiosus is here personally, then I don't think we can possibly win this. Osgodoth bristled. He wheeled on Pyrite and grabbed him by the gorget that sat around his neck.
So you would simply surrender? I thought better of you, Peter.
Pyrite glared down at the smaller demon. Keep your voice down, Spellweaver. I never said anything about surrender. Osgodoth released his grip and backed up a few steps.
Forgive me, Pyrrhus.
He began. My name is Pyrite. The Spellweaver looked at him for a few seconds before continuing.
Yes. Well, what's our plan if we can't win?
Pyrite turned away from him and examined the forces he had at his disposal. 1 stone behemoth and 4 stone Goliaths stood shoulder to shoulder at the head of the bridge. They were so still that had he not known any better, he would have guessed their roughly sculpted rock forms were a poor excuse for statues.
I will also say, kind of the same thing I brought up with the Imperium. Pyrite has done a phenomenal job already of really selling the identities of the different factions. I don't want to say nations, but of selling the identities of the different factions just by how they look at their own resources. The fact that you can tell that immediately the summons, the golems are such a strong part of their military, such a strong part of their identity. It really does sell, not necessarily that they're in tune. Yeah, ignore me! Sorry. Not really that they're necessarily in tune with nature, but they're that powerful, and how really small their forces are, but how bolstered they are.
Behind them, the Perpetuum Guard were recovering from the initial engagement. They numbered only 30, a testament to the disdain the house held for the barbaric military arts. 10 gargoyles lined the side of the bridge, 5 on each side, built directly into the architecture. And finally, a ways behind the mouth of the bridge, stood the volunteer casters. Numbering 12, there were 10 summoners, from whom the Goliaths had come, and 2 evocationists. Pyrite glanced at the female demon who awaited his word. Anid, did you see any casters among the invaders?
I couldn't get close enough to count them, but I saw a few hoods in the ranks. Archers, too.
Pyrite turned toward the bridge and raised his voice to a shout. Listen up! Every horned head in attendance turned to him. Warriors, form shield wall, 20 steps behind the summons. 10 wide, 3 deep. Keep the ranks tight. Go! The guards jumped to their feet and ran to their places. Pyrite turned to the casters. Evocationists, you're our firepower. Stay with Osgodoth and smash their lines for us. Just don't hit us in the back. Summoners, stay together and find cover. The moment a Goliath goes down, I want another one ready to take its place. The 2 evocationists ran to join Osgodoth, while the summoners found cover behind a rock face. Osgodoth nodded to the 2 casters who joined him, and looked back at Pyrite.
And what about me?
Pyrite met his gaze and smiled. Your job is the most important. Pyrite stood just in front of the wall of tower shields. On the right side of the formation stood Anid, her spear in hand. On the left was Daran, the 3rd and last member of Squad Pyrite. They were to ensure the corners of the formation didn't fall, while he would hold the center. Such a ragtag band we are, Pyrite thought as he looked at his squad mates and the forces they led. Why they followed him he never could figure out, but they did nonetheless. May we all survive this. With a sigh, he looked forward. He could hear it. The marching. The first row of Imperios' soldiers rounded the corner and stepped into view. They were followed by another row, and then another, until the path was filled with armored demons and...
Of course, Pyrite. Honestly, I need to be thanking you. Like, the fact that you're allowing me to do this, and granted, I know, and don't worry, I know the screen went black for a second. I know you wanted to get this out, obviously, and it deserves to get out. I mean, I don't think that I need to even say how much. Like, I'm pretty sure anyone here, Ollie, anyone who hasn't seen this before, you can tell the amount of love and just craftsmanship that went into this. It deserves to be told. So thank you. And I'm only sorry that I don't have as much to comment on it. It is enrapturing, but this is kind of why I don't like doing reaction comments. It's absolutely enrapturing. Pyrite's narration is phenomenal. I know. And here's the other thing you got to remember, Shin. I've seen this. I've seen part 1. I haven't seen part 2. My mirror is freaking out.
Perfect
again.
formation, shields at their sides and weapons still sheathed. The wall of invaders marched forward endlessly from the mountain pass. The officers, mounted on nightmares, rode alongside their soldiers.
Also, I love
While the
Nightmares.
individual
Good
Imperialis
touch.
legionary was never too impressively powerful, it was their sheer numbers and instinctual discipline that made them such a great threat. The demons behind Pirate were realizing that firsthand. Even now, before their enemy was at the other end of the bridge, he could hear them muttering behind him. Both awe and fear gripped them. Pyrite
There
turned
it
and faced
is.
his forces. Hear me, brothers and sisters! These invaders are many, I'll give them that. But it is not numbers that will decide victory this day. Are we going to roll over and give in because our foe is many? Are we going to let them march into our home and slaughter our people? Murmurs of defiant anger rippled through the ranks. Pyrite raised his glaive, and the Perpetuum banner manifested upon its haft, unfurling and flying in the frigid mountain wind. Look to our banner and remember who we are! We are House Perpetuum! We are the bulwark that has stood since the dawn of time! We are those who stood against the gods themselves! And these invaders think to attack us with their numbers? They think that will be enough? He pointed his glaive at the oncoming legion. They will rue the day they delivered our vengeance to us! They will look back on this day with fear and shame! It is here we make our stand and show these invaders why we are called eternal! Cheers erupted in sword blades.
Okay, so I have to interrupt at some point. You can really feel Pyrite, not just character, but narrate, like the actual, as the person, the narrator. You can feel the passion in that speech. And I've done voice work. You cannot teach that. So infinite credit to Pyrite for that. And even just without the narration of it, even just hearing the words, like ignore the delivery of it for a second. The speech itself is phenomenal. And it really does instantly, and I see Shin in the chat talking, like getting into it too. It instantly hits that right in the core. And it's like any good speech. Exactly. Pirate, and you're the one that wrote and narrated it, but you did it so damn well that you can really, it hits. You want to rise up and fight. And I will say, the first time I saw this, granted I was cooking at the time, but I wanted to immediately go running to play, dude, like some Dynasty Warrior or something. I just wanted to fight an army. Let's go! And the sting is perfectly timed. The musical sting. Bravo. Art. Just artistry. Matter of fact,
These invaders why we are called eternal! Cheers erupted and sword blades slammed against shields in thunderous applause. Pyrite noticed a need giving him a thumbs up with a wry smirk on her face. Smartass.
I do love
Pyrite
the
gave her
little
a
bit
wink
image.
and turned back to the enemy. They had reached the bridge and, in perfect order, switched from march columns to rows of battle. He looked past the stone construct standing between the two armies and watched as the enemy formed rows 10 wide and hundreds deep. Finally, they drew blades and marched forth. Suddenly, there was a percussive crack as bowstrings loosed, and Pyrite looked to see a cloud of arrows rise high into the sky. Shields up! Pyrite shouted. The front row of shields slammed into the brick, reforming the wall that had faltered during the cheering. The back ranks raised their shields above their comrades before them, presenting a solid sheet of protection overhead. Dadan raised his shield, Anid closed her visor, and Pyrite manifested his helmet. They fell like rain. Hundreds of arrows slammed into the raised shields, biting into the darkwood. A few deflected off of Pyrite's armor, showering the forces behind him in sparks, but he didn't flinch. Osgodoth, give him a proper Perpetuum welcome, Pyrite thought.
As you wish, lad.
The spellweaver replied telepathically. 3 fireballs, one considerably larger than the others, shot out from behind the Perpetuum line. They soared overhead in an arc, and the invaders raised shields in vain. The flames fell upon them and exploded, sending the front ranks flying outwards. Those on the flanks of the formation were sent careening over the edge and fell screaming into the pit below. The legionaries who weren't killed on impact cried in agony as their armor melted to their skin. 2 officers who had survived the blast began shouting orders from atop their demonic steeds. Pyrite looked at Anid, who nodded back. He poured his meager magical power into his weapon, and the broad-bladed head reformed into a long, winged spear. Turning his weapon over in his hand, he and Enid reached back as far as their armored forms would permit. In unison, they took a step forward, their steel-plated boots cracking the brick underfoot. And then, they threw. The spears rocketed forth, flying between the Goliaths and Behemoth and into the officers. The pair were carried off their mounts and pinned to the brick beneath them. They hadn't even had time to scream. Pyrite manifested a new glaive, as well as a spear which he threw to Enid. He looked back to Osgodoth. Their front line is broken. Send them in and start targeting their archers. The Spellweaver gave a telepathic grunt of affirmation, and the statue-like constructs moved forward. Led by the Behemoth, they gradually increased in speed until they reached an earth-shattering jog. The bridge shook beneath Pyrite's feet with every step the giant elementals took. The invaders saw the lumbering rock forms barreling toward them and formed the best shield wall they could manage. It mattered as little as it had against the fireballs. Once again, the front line shattered, crushed under stone feet as first the Behemoth and then the Goliaths smashed through the line. The Behemoth came to a slow halt and...
Also, I'd like to make a... I cannot say it enough, Matriarch. He deserves the adoration he's getting. He deserves the praise. I'm only upset I don't have a bigger audience to spread this, you know? I will say also, it is a huge note of a positive. Language, hard. I've only been speaking English a couple hundred years, alright? Leave me alone. It is a massive check in... Fuck it, I'm gonna just say it like an idiot. It very good for world building that the golems aren't just the golems. Hey, thank you, Wally. They're not just the golems. That they actually have classifications. That it really does sell how much of a military world this is, rather than just, oh, we have golem and we have bigger golem. Which I'll be real. I would not have thought to categorize the golems.
Swept its club-like arms through the legionaries, sending them flying back into their own formation, their screams drowned out by the smashing of stone arms on black brick and the marching of boots. A second trifecta of fireballs soared overhead and landed in the enemy's rear lines. They exploded and sent charred demons flying into the rock walls that they hid beside. Keep at it, Spellweaver, Pyrite thought. Osgodoth did not entertain a reply, likely busy evoking a new ball of fire. That was fine, though, as Pyrite had his own problems to deal with.
Yeah, shit. Welcome to my debut stream. Today we're talking about lore. Atta girl, Mappy. Get him! Yeah, hey, take care. And it's lovely to meet you too, Wally. And thank you. Yeah, debut Shin. First stream. We're talking about lore. No, not my lore.
Stragglers, legionaries who had managed to get past the constructs, started to filter through the stone grinder and charge the Perpetuum line. Pyrite readied his glaive as one of them ran toward him. The demon put his shield in front of him and tried to ram into Pyrite. Pyrite stepped out of the way and swept his glaive low, catching the armored legs of the invader and sending him falling forward. He gave a screech of surprise and fury as he fell onto his shield, skidding to a halt before the Perpetuum formation. Desperately, the invader tried to swing at Pyrite from his prone position, but Pyrite stomped on his arm, pinning it in place. Pyrite glared down at him, demonic energy flowing from the eye slits on his helmet. With the butt spike of his weapon, he plunged it into the back of the demon's neck, killing him. Just as he retracted his glaive, another 3 invaders reached him. Together, they swung at him, converging from left, right, and above all at once. Pyrite caught 2 of the blows on his glaive, one on the blade and one on the lower haft. He blocked the last with his left vambrace, the blade biting into his armor. With a grunt, he shoved the 2 on his right back and swung his glaive around, slamming the blade into the armored head of the remaining invader. The demon rocked back, stunned by the blow, and lowered his shield just enough. Pyrite swung again. This time his glaive bit into the unarmored skin of the invader's neck. It cleaved through with little resistance, and the demon fell to the brick, head rolling away. Pyrite turned to face the 2 others, but found them being cut down by the Perpetuum guards. He gave silent thanks to them and refocused on another invader charging him. With shield raised, the invader also attempted to ram into him. Pyrite slammed his glaive down from above, and it dug into the dark wood. The force of the impact staggered the demon, and with one motion, Pirate wrenched his weapon free and spun it. The back haft caught the side of the shield and forced it away. Pirate continued the swing and decapitated the now vulnerable legionary. With a moment to breathe, Pirate looked around and took stock. He saw his squad mates finishing off their respective opponents. The rest of the formation was embroiled in battle, but from where Pirate stood, it seemed to be going in their favor. He was impressed. He hadn't really expected the inexperienced Perpetuum guards to hold so well against Imperiosis legionaries. Suddenly, the ground shook, and a massive boom sounded from further along the bridge. Pirate looked and saw that one of the Goliaths had crashed to the black brick, toppled by the hundreds of fighters that surrounded and clung to it. There was a...
I will say, too, if this wasn't titled The Fall of Eternity, I would firmly be at the moment of, like, they put you, as if I don't know who wrote it. Pirate masterfully puts you in, well, Pyrite's shoes here. In that he thinks the battle's going good, and between the music and the way the narration works and the way the writing is going, you firmly believe right now they're unstoppable. There's nothing that can happen to them. And then you look up and you look, wait, what's the title of the video? Oh.
Sudden and short outpouring of blue energy, and Pirate knew it was dead, its core destroyed. The rest of the summons fought on, sending swaths of soldiers flying off the sides of the bridge or crushing them into it. But they were battered. Entire chunks of their stone skin had been smashed to dust by the endless onslaught of Imperiosis blades. The behemoth, in particular, was crawling with demons that looked like insects crawling on a carcass. They hammered at its chest with heavy spiked pommels, trying to chip away enough stone to expose its core. We can't lose the behemoth, Pirate thought. He knew Osgodoth wouldn't have the mana necessary to summon another. Dadan! Pirate shouted above the chaos. He found his companion pulling his sword from a dead legionary. The demon turned his head to look at him. Take command of the front! I'm going to help the behemoth! Dadan nodded and quickly turned back to the fight as another enemy charged him. Confident Dadan would handle it, Pirate took off for the summons. Another Goliath fell, and its core was quickly destroyed, releasing an outcry of magical energy. As Pirate ran, more invaders tried to intercept him, and he readied himself to meet them. A large stone arm swung over his head and crushed the enemies into the brick. Pirate looked back and was greeted by a newly summoned Goliath. He noticed the formation closing the hole that was made for the elemental to pass through. The Goliath lowered a club-like arm toward him, and he climbed on. It raised him up to its shoulder and continued its lumbering run toward the enemy. Pirate held on to the misshapen boulder that made up its head as it picked up speed.
To give another credit to the artist here too, Pirate, whenever the book comes out, if you do not tap this same artist to do your cover art, I don't know what to say to you. Because, chat, tell me, you couldn't see this exact image, like on the back of the book, like, you know, when you open up the book fully and it makes the full image. Tell me you can't see this. Right here is the split. This is the front, this is the cover, and this is the back. Tell me you can't see that.
As they reached the line, the Goliath lowered its arm as a ram and smashed into the backs of the invaders who surrounded the rest of its embattled brothers. Pirate leapt from the Goliath, passed over the heated battle below, and landed on the behemoth. As he did, he brought his glaive down on one of the many demons who clung to it. The weapon caved in the demon's helmet, crushing his skull and mangling the blade. The demon fell to the ground and was crushed under stone foot. Pirate imbued his damaged weapon with magical energy, and the blade straightened, returning to its razor-sharp form. And then he got to work. Like swatting carrion flies, Pirate swung and stabbed at the invaders, sending them falling to the ground below. Slowly, he cleared the behemoth of attackers. Suddenly, a blindingly bright flash ripped across the battlefield, heading straight for him. He saw it coming only a split second before the electrical blast blinded and smashed into him. Thunder shook the air around him. He was thrown off the behemoth and into the raised edge of the bridge before, at last, the magical blast subsided. Pirate let out a deep breath and pushed himself up with his glaive. A runic talisman of magical protection, interwoven into the lamellibranch plates that made up his chest armor, fizzled and burned out. He tried to ignore the ringing in his ears and searched the cliffs on the other side of the valley. A group of Imperiosis legionaries ran at him, but they were smacked away by one of the Goliaths, who now formed a circle of protection around him. Finally, he found them. The team of casters he had been waiting for, 20 or so by his quick count, stood together and began flinging fireballs at the Goliaths. The uncaring flames consumed friend and foe alike. One of the Goliaths, the one who had carried him, was hit in the chest and magical energy exploded out. It fell to the ground, crushing the enemy beneath it. Pyrite knew that House Imperiosus would keep their casters together, in one easily controlled group. They always did. In matters of march and discipline, they were unmatched. But they were not a magic house. They used casters as batteries of concentrated firepower, and cared little whether or not those casters were actually suited to offensive forms of magic. These were all the casters Lord Segred had brought. If they had any who were skilled in the schools of transmutation or conjuration, they would be in this group. And that was what Pyrite was betting on. Pyrite stood up straight and shouted, his voice rising above the intense melee. Gargoyles! The statues along the edge of the bridge.
Okay, the delivery on gargoyles is absolutely fucking perfect. But I've been wanting to say this. I'm sure you guys can tell. It's one of those things you do not want to pause it, right? But I really do appreciate the use of extra. Oh, I fucking bet. But the use of actual really in-depth descriptors. It's not just flies, it's carrion flies. It's things like that, you know. The lamelier, like, it's very, very in-depth, very nuanced. And that is something that takes a lot of work to do. By the way, Pyrite, since we got you, when we took a look at Terrapicatus, excuse me, again, I'm terrible with names and words and language and whatever. The map shows the single continent. Is there other continents on Terrapicatus? That's one thing that immediately comes to my mind. Because, like, that's immediately what I think of. And if you don't want to answer, don't. Oh, that's nice. I like that. Thank you.
Began to tremble, little cracks forming on their heads, until, at last, the stone broke, and their heads snapped around to look at him. Pyrite pointed at the casters with his glaive, and uttered the order. Kill them! The gargoyles looked from his weapon to their prey. Once their beady red eyes locked onto their target, the stone that surrounded the rest of their bodies began to tremble, falling away in chunks. Red, leathery wings stretched out, and with a heavy beat, the 10 creatures lifted off into the air and bore down on their targets. As they converged, fireballs and lightning blasts were hastily shot toward them. The blast slammed into them, but the gargoyles shrugged them off, having taken little damage, their magic-resistant skin allowing them to cross the distance. Like ravenous birds of prey, they landed on the casters and began to tear into them. Suddenly, there was a massive explosion on the cliffside. It stained the entire battlefield a deep orange and sent sheets of rock tumbling down into the black abyss. A self-destruct spell, Pyrite concluded. Even despite the gargoyles' natural resistance, they likely wouldn't have survived that blast. But the gargoyles had done their job, and, thanks to them, House Perpetuum had a chance. Pyrite turned his attention back to the innumerable enemy before him. The 2 remaining Goliaths that protected him smashed the legionaries surrounding them. The behemoth was ringed with slain invaders, their armored forms bent at terrible angles. Despite this, the Legion continued their attack, trampling over their fallen comrades and leaping onto the great stone elemental. Pyrite left the protection of the Goliaths and ran to help the behemoth. The Goliaths, noticing his intent, cleared a path with sweeping club-like arms. One legionary, with different armor from the rest, chain rather than segmented plate, avoided the blow and came at him. The invader swung, his blade sweeping flat. Pyrite raised his glaive to guard. The metal blade gave a loud crack as it bit into the darkwood haft of the polearm. Pyrite shoved out with the weapon, pushing the blade off, and realized his mistake. The legionary let the momentum carry his blade back, redirecting it so that it swung down on the opposite side. Pyrite tried to bring his glaive around, but he was too slow, and the blow smashed into his gorget, denting it into the padded coat he wore beneath. Pyrite groaned as pain from the blow radiated out from the quickly bruising spot. The invader reached back with his shield and plunged the bottom of it into Pyrite's helmet like a spear. Pyrite fell back, dazed, his vision blurry. What he could see through the eye slits of his helmet was the dark sky above. Finally, he realized he was on his back. He turned his head to see the legs of his attacker approaching. He gripped the haft of his glaive, gave silent thanks that he hadn't let go of it, and swung. The curved blade streaked for the armored shins. Right as it was about to reach the target, the invader slammed his shield into the black brick, catching it. Pyrite, one hand still gripping the glaive and his other planted firmly on the brick, got his feet beneath him and stood up. He spun his glaive first back and then overhead, bringing it down toward the crested head of the enemy, whom he now realized was a centurion. The centurion raised his shield and caught the glaive once again. As it collided, though, Pyrite suffused the weapon with magical energy, and the blade deformed, curling into a hook-like shape over the top of the shield. He yanked, and the hooked blade dug into the back of the shield, pulling it and the centurion forward. The centurion released his grip and raised his blade high before bringing it down. Pyrite ripped the hooked glaive from the shield as it fell to his feet. He spun the weapon in front of him, deflecting the incoming blade away. He saw the red eyes of the centurion go wide from beneath his helmet as the demon realized his mistake. Pyrite plunged the butt spike of his weapon into the unprotected throat of the centurion. The demon grabbed the staff protruding from his throat and spat up blood. For a moment, he glared at Pyrite before his eyes went dim and his arm limp. Pyrite pulled the polearm free and reformed its blade. He looked around and was pleased to see that 2 new Goliaths had joined the melee and, together with their fellow summons, had re-established the front line. No wonder we weren't interrupted, he thought as he glanced at the dead centurion. He took a deep breath and looked back at the Perpetuum line. They had taken serious losses in his absence. The first rank of 10 demons had fallen, and roughly half of the second as well. It seemed, judging by the number of Imperios' bodies lying before them, that quite a lot of the invaders had gotten past the summons when the elemental line had faltered. Nonetheless, they would hold, for now. Pyrite turned his attention back to the enemy before him, searching through the endless tide of uniformed foes. Lord Sigurd was still nowhere to be found. Bastard, Pyrite thought. He had wanted to wait until Sigurd was on the bridge to enact his plan, hoping the Lord would get involved once he saw his forces weren't making sufficient progress. Evidently, he had misjudged the Lord's patience. Pyrite considered his options and decided. Osgaroth, he said telepathically.
Is it time, lad?
The spellweaver returned. Before Pyrite could answer, a thunderous boom rang out through the entire mountain range. It sounded distant, but it had shaken the bridge beneath his feet. Pyrite looked in the direction of the sound. What? He fell silent as he heard the waxing whistle and saw the black objects flying toward him. Just before impact, a giant stone arm thrust in front of him, and in the next moment, exploded. Knives of rock slammed into him, finding gaps in his armor and plunging deep into his flesh. A larger stone smashed into his chest and sent him flying back. As he flew, time seemed to slow. In a moment of confused clarity, he wondered what had just happened.
I know, no offense meant here, I know confused clarity isn't exactly a very unique combination of words, but oh my fucking god, it is so strong! It is such a good choice.
Had more casters? Had Sigurd separated them after all? Was he about to die? Had they just lost? Finally, his back hit solid brick, and he skidded. Sparks leapt from the shrieking metal of his lamelliered back armor before he slammed into the edge of the bridge and lost consciousness. When Pyrite's eyes opened, 2 things hit him in sequence. First was the searing pain all throughout his body. The second was the agony-filled screams of demons dying. His helmet was gone, and Dadan knelt above him, wrapping bandages around his bleeding arm. Above him, a series of fireballs sailed over, exploding soon after. Pyrite got up, pushed the protesting Dadan back, and saw chaos before him. He had awoken behind the dwindling Perpetuum line, which was being overrun by Imperios' soldiers. He watched as the remaining stalwart defenders were slaughtered. The entire bridge was filled with invaders. The behemoth stood alone, crawling with armored bodies that slammed pommels into its chest, searching for its core. One of its club-like arms was gone. Pyrite looked at Dadan. We need more Goliaths!
I firmly agree, Shin. And Pyrite, you can fucking tell. And again, infinite credit, not just to Pyrite. And while this is his moment, no doubt, and don't get me wrong, he is the orchestrator of this, but every single piece of art that went into this is phenomenal. The music, the narration, the writing, the picture, the art. God, I wish we had a different word for physical, visual art. But I firmly agree, Shin. Like, it really does sell so much that sense of just, oh really? I actually didn't realize that. It really does sell that sense of bewildered hopelessness. Like, you understand, you feel immediately that sense of dread and loss that hasn't quite come, but you know it's right there. The best way I can think to describe it right now, and this is my own, again, Pyra, I told you this when I first heard it, listening to this always inspires me as well. And the only way my brain is thinking to describe it right now is exactly, there is that little glimmer of we can hope to come back. This scene evokes the hairs on the back of your neck. That feeling of, I don't know what it is. I don't know where. But something bad is here. Not coming, here. I just can't see it yet. And it is delivered masterfully.
Zidane looked past him and pointed. The summoners are dead. They were hit in the first salvo from the cannons. He shouted above the chaos. An incoming arrow ricocheted off his shield, and he flinched in surprise. Pyrite turned and saw the collapsed rock face far behind their line. It was then that he processed what his comrade had said. Cannons?
House Provectus cannons. I'm sorry, Pyrite. I didn't see them.
Anid shouted as she joined the two. She shook blood from her sword, her spear long since broken. Pyrite looked back at the writhing bridge, fully realizing the direness of their situation. Osgaroth! Destroy the bridge, now! He shouted, both telepathically and out loud.
Understood.
The three watched as the behemoth, whose stone skin looked black under the bodies that clung to it, reached back with its one arm.
Also, that is such a metal goddamn description. Like, the fact that the Goliath is so covered with the dead that it changes the texture and the color itself. Holy shit, that image.
And brought it down. The entire mountainside shook. Fighting stopped. All eyes turned to the elemental. Again, it raised its arm, and again it slammed it down. A massive crack splintered through the black brick structure. A third time, it raised its arm. But this time, the crack came before it brought it down. 3 cannonballs slammed into the behemoth. Chunks of stone fell from its chest as it stumbled back, lumbering stone leg over stone leg, until it hit the raised edge of the bridge and fell over.
Don't get me wrong, Shin. Only Pyrite knows for 100% sure, but that's the image I get of it. Because the charred black gives me the image of again, burned, charred. So in my brain, that immediately transfers to the dead. And see, Pyrite, that is the mark of an amazing artist. And I know this sounds like I'm just doing nothing but kissing Pyrite's ass, but he deserves it. The fact that me and Shin can see it 2 different ways, but immediately both are applicable. And it gives the reader, or the listener in this case, the ability to... Please, no, continue! It gives the reader the ability to not create their own scene, but to kind of almost put their own mild spin on it, which is so hard to maintain. Because what you're doing there is you're making sure that the reader knows what's happening. They have the grander scale. They have the big picture, but you're allowing just enough space for the small, fine details to be painted in by the reader, which makes it so much more, I don't want to say personal, but it lets them immerse themselves better. You cannot teach that. That is amazing. Legitimately.
Aside, the screams of those invaders still clinging to it echoed up from the pit. At last, silence fell over the battlefield. Pyrite forced himself to breathe. It was over. He had failed. A trumpet call sounded.
Again, and I'm sorry I'm pausing in the reaction. The voice work there, the delivery of "he had failed," it really does hit that again. It puts you in his shoes so well. It really hits like you owe it money. It is so well delivered.
Pounded through the mountain pass, cutting the silence like a blade. All at once, as though possessed by a single mind, the tide of legionaries parted down the middle of the bridge. Even the dead were dragged from the opening. Pyrite looked on with renewed horror as Lord Sigrid Imperiosus, mounted atop a nightmare, rode on to the black brick. His 4 heavily armored honor guard walked alongside him, their cloaks billowing out behind them. Each gripped ornamented great axes and wore skull masks, marking their status. One of them, the largest, wore blood-red scale armor.
Is that...
Osgaroth asked as he and his evocationist joined the mercenaries. Pyrite didn't even look at him. His fuming gaze was locked on his target. He gripped his glaive, imbuing it with magic once more.
Spellweaver, throw everything you have at that bastard.
His words came as little more than a whisper. His glaive's curved head had reformed into a spear point, and in his other hand, a new spear assembled itself. Osgaroth nodded, and he and his casters turned toward one another. Holding out their hands, a ball of flame ignited between them. The 3 casters stepped toward each other, muttering incantations in unison, and the flames began to spin and condense, forced inward. Gusts of wind were sucked in to feed the ravenous flames as sparks began to erupt from the shrinking orb. It turned from orange to blue, then purple. Finally, they raised their hands, and the ball obeyed, rising above them. As it rose, so did their voices. They shouted the final magical word, and the ball of furious light ripped from their arcane grasp, shooting toward the oncoming lord. It slammed into the approaching demons and erupted. Purple light exploded out, throwing those legionaries near their lord off the edge of the bridge. Electrical arcs spidered from the blast, jumping from invader to invader, frying them in their armor. As the smoke cleared, they saw the foremost honor guard lower his braced arm, the runic talisman forged into his vambrace smoldering. Lord Sigrid and his honor guard were unharmed. Pyrite and Enid, with her fresh spear in hand, reached back and aimed for the chest of the lord just past the honor guard. Together, they stepped forward, stone cracking underfoot, and through. Even faster than the ball of plasma before, the spears streaked through the still ionized air until they reached their target and stopped. Pyrite's breath caught in his throat. He looked from the immobile spears to the 2 honor guard holding them just inches from their lord's chestplate. Without a thought, they crushed the hafts and tossed them aside. Pyrite looked at what were...
And again, I masterful music choice here, because with the narration, it really does underline the hopelessness too. Like, bravo.
Remained. All that he had left were those standing with him now.
Forgive me,
he said. He manifested a new glaive and looked at his comrades. Shall we then? He noticed them exchanging looks of resigned acceptance. Osgaroth stepped toward him and placed a hand on his shoulder.
You have nothing to apologize for, lad.
Pyrite looked from the hand to the ancient demon.
But it is not your fate to die here.
Pyrite looked at Duran and Enid. What are you? Duran held his gaze and said, These casters won't last a second without a vanguard. We'll take down as many as we can, boss. His eyes showed worry behind his determination.
Thank you for everything, Pyrite.
Enid added, a slight quiver in her voice. Realization dawned on Pyrite as he felt the magical energy flaring in Osgaroth's hand. No! Oz, don't! Pyrite reached out, but it was too late. He was no longer on the bridge. Around him was the grand foyer of Perpetuum Keep.
Protect the matriarch. It's been an honor, lad.
Okay, I know this is going to sound generic, I guess, but legitimately got chills. Like, the ending of that is so phenomenal. And just like games, we give credit where it's due. They deserve it. And the fact that it's only the two of them on here, not including, of course, but it's amazing. Also, Ares has decided to join us. He got to get up on the ladder, so. And this is only part 1 of, well, 3.5, because there is an epilogue. But we...
The fall.
Said, we will likely... Yes, hello, Ares. Hello, you big... Hold on, I don't know if this will pick up. I'm going to crank the mic up just for a second, because he's purring loud. Here, boy. You got something to say? Oh, that is picking up. Good boy. Yes, listening to the tragedy of House Perpetuum with a purring cat in my lap makes me feel like a supervillain. And right, Matthew? Like, this is what I said. That's what I said. It is the highest mark of a creator, and the biggest compliment I can pay Pyrite is that he is inspirational. He makes you want to do your own work. It's amazing. So this, I haven't seen yet. I have not seen part 2 yet. So you are very likely to get a lot more pausing. But if it's, I mean, we'll see. Yeah, nurse, tell me of the fall of the Perpetuums. Ares, don't you lash your tail at me, okay? You are a prop right now.
The Fall of Eternity. Act 2. No. Pyrite dropped his glaive. His heart pounded in his ears, and he ran to one of the tall windows that flanked the keep's large, dark wood doors. Through the glass, he saw the steps that wound down the mountain. Even despite the physical barrier before him, he could hear the cries and explosions coming from the bridge below.
The immediate hopelessness, too. Not only in the delivery, the music, and, again, the writing. And I'm going to keep coming back to that, because that's the star of the show here. Why has my mirror... Oh, no, I'm... The symbol of the house symbol blended so well into my background, I got really confused for a second.
The bridge, where his friends were dying without him. Oz! Oz, please! He pleaded as baseless hope held on. Pushing all reason aside, he watched and waited, hoping Osgaroth's croaking voice would intrude on his thoughts once more, to tell him that they had won, or escaped, or anything. But no voice came. Suddenly, a colossal explosion erupted from the bridge, and Pyrite knew. And he screamed. He slammed his fist onto the windowsill, crushing the stone to dust and sending a crack splintering through the glass. His cries echoed through the empty halls, until finally, he fell quiet and hung his head.
Protect the matriarch.
Osgaroth's order echoed in his mind. Pyrite looked up, his eyes fuming. He knew the Spellweaver was right, and he would not let their sacrifice be in vain. He pushed off the sill, and the keep shook violently as a crash echoed through the walls. Dust fell from the high ceiling as 4 more cannonballs followed the first, pounding the walls of the keep. Pyrite heard a shrill screech and watched as stone-covered creatures slammed down just in front of the window. The last line of gargoyles, no doubt animated by the cannon fire, roared out their fury and took off down the steps. Pyrite gave a wistful smile as he turned to do that which Osgaroth, Anid, and Dadan had entrusted him with. Pyrite grabbed his glaive from the floor and looked at the room around him. It was a disaster. Random papers covered in magical theory littered the marble floor. Bookshelves, overturned by the cannon shocks, lay with their books spilled like the blood of the fallen warriors outside. He pushed the thought out of his mind and set off down the hall of eternal glory.
Good metaphor.
As he ran,
good metaphor, and then following it up with pushing the thought out of the mind really gives you that. Like, if animated gives you if animated gives you the image of like the bookshelf on its tilted over, fallen to the ground, flash into an image of the body and the blood, and then flash back. Like, perfect. I don't want to say evocation, but it really does pull that out of you.
Past the many portraits and statues that sat enshrined within recesses along the walls. Matriarchs, patriarchs, spellweavers, the whole lineage of this place and its noble denizens. And it was going to be destroyed. The thought filled him with fury, which he appreciated as it drowned out the grief. Finally, he reached the end of the hall, where, beyond a set of large doors, lay the room he was looking for, the astral atrium. Just before he entered the room, a bright white flash shone from around the doors and dissipated just as fast. Pyrite slid past the doors, his eyes adjusting to the dim blue of the towering room. The astral atrium was the centermost point of the keep and served as both grand hall and nexus. Where most atriums had a grand skylight as their roof, the astral atrium had no such skylight. Instead, its large domed ceiling displayed an accurate, magical projection of the cosmos. The ancient demons, those of the Spellweaver Council, stood around a large ritual circle in the form of an 8-pointed star. The embroidered robes they wore sparkled as the light from the star fizzled out. The demon on the far side of the room, Tomak, noticed Pyrite and regarded him.
Pyrite? How fares the defense?
Another, the one known as Ulvan, turned and asked,
Have the invaders been repelled?
Pyrite's grip on his glaive tightened as he fought to maintain his composure. He had failed, and now he had to tell the council. Pyrite, his voice shaking, said, They've broken through. I'm the only survivor. There's not much time. Gasps echoed through the room.
Coward! You ran?
Roared Ugrath from his place on the right side of the circle. Pyrite's glaive cracked in his grip as his anger flared, but the Spellweaver carried on.
It was foolish to trust the defense to a barbarian like you. A failure, like you've always— That's enough,
bellowed Zagil.
Good layering of the voice work, too. One thing that's really hard when doing your own voice work and acting against yourself is layering it just right. Because, by the way, Pirate, was that layered or was that you actually cutting yourself off in the same take? I think you spell it D-I-C-K. Wait, no, it's too short. Okay. But even still, very good.
The eldest member of the council from his place beside Ugrath.
You are acting a newborn, Ugrath.
The old demon calmed his raging eyes and looked at Pyrite.
What happened?
Pyrite peeled his glare away from Ugrath and returned Zagil's gaze.
Oh,
Sigrid himself is
that's
leading
Zagil. I've heard of we've spoken of Zagil.
Invasion. We held as best we could. We were going to destroy the bridge to halt their advance, but cannon fire from House Prevectus cannons destroyed the behemoth before it could do so. Osgaroth teleported me here to ensure the matriarch's safety.
Osgaroth has fallen?
Ulvan asked, more to herself than Pyrite.
House Provectus has allied with House Imperiosus?
Demanded Somar from the left side of the circle. I don't know. All I know is Sigrid has their cannons, Pyrite replied. Zagil stroked his beard.
Sigrid himself.
Is the evacuation concluded?
Yes. We just teleported the last group to House Neveus lands. They are honoring the agreement. Our house will endure,
explained Tomak. A dissatisfied grunt came from Ugrath, who muttered,
We wouldn't have had to run it all had this useless cur not failed.
A blast of pure magical energy slammed into the side of Ugrath, and he fell to the floor.
The fault of this falls not on Pyrrhus.
Zagil glared down at the groaning Spellweaver, the crystal embedded at the top of his staff still glowing.
I'm sorry, I just greatly appreciate the actual shut the fuck up moment.
Not for him.
Long
House
range
Neveus would
backhand.
never have agreed to shelter us in the first place. Sargal's betrayal is to blame.
Though he was grateful for Zagil's intervention, they had no time. So the matriarch has been evacuated, Pyrite pressed. The spellweavers exchanged concerned looks. Pyrite knew what that meant. Where is she? Ulvan took a step toward Pyrite.
We tried to persuade her.
Pyrite's eyes grew wide as the spellweaver explained.
She's convinced she can complete the summoning. You know how stubborn she—
Where is she? Pyrite interrupted. His voice was cold, each word drawn out as he restated his question. The spellweaver looked down.
The Tower of Kav'Voth.
Suddenly, the entire keep shuddered as an explosive crack rang through the hall behind Pyrite. As the ringing echo died away, it was replaced with the shouts of marauding demons. He looked at each of the spellweavers. They're here. Get yourselves to safety. I'll get her out. Somehow. Without another word, he ran past the spellweavers and headed for the far door that led deeper into the keep.
Pedus,
called Zagil. Pyrite stopped and looked back. The spellweaver tossed a shining crystal to him.
Good luck.
Pyrite looked at the crystal for a moment, surprised, then nodded and took off down the hall. Zagil watched the young demon go and let out a long sigh. He turned and looked at the other council members. They patiently awaited his word.
Ugrath, destroy the bridge to the eastern wing. Agiol, you destroy the western bridge,
Zagil said. Agiol gave a solemn nod, while Ugrath, back on his feet, stared at him, a look of both horror and shame upon his face.
So it has come to this, that we must destroy our own home?
Zagil.
Actually, very, very fascinating and a really good defense. Building your I don't want to say castle, but building your home in such a way that you can, much like the bridge that led in the first place, destroy the path to different wings to at least try and even slow them down. Anything. Interesting.
Gil returned his gaze.
So it has. The least we can do is prevent our foe from accessing all of our secrets.
Perpetuum Keep was divided into 4 sections, each separated by the chasms between the mountains they rested upon. When the castle was being built, space atop the mountain quickly ran out, and so bridges were built to connect the main keep to the small peaks surrounding it. The central keep, where they were now, made up the bulk of the castle. The western keep consisted of multiple dormitories for the many casters who had once resided within these ancient walls. The eastern keep housed many of the magical laboratories and classrooms where those casters learned their craft. And the northern villa housed the spellweavers and matriarch or patriarch. But more importantly, within the eastern and western keeps lay the entrances to the crypts that run deep beneath the mountains.
Once the bridges are destroyed, activate the anti-teleportation fields around the crypts. We can at least spare our honored dead from Sargal's greed.
I'm sorry. That is not funny. It is not. It's funny to me because, you know, this little skull in the ice above my head. Spare our honored dead. Kav'Voth looking like... What? It isn't funny.
Once that is done, teleport to House Neveus lands. The rest of you, go now.
Zagil could hear the approaching demons from the hall. Without another word, the remaining members of the Spellweaver Council teleported away, white light flashing one by one as they retreated from the atrium. Agiol and Ugrath teleported to complete their respective tasks, while Ronad, Tolmak, Volgon, and Solmar all teleported to the relative safety of House Neveus. When the final flashes concluded, only Zagil and Ulvan remained.
And what about you, Zagil? You left yourself out.
Ulvan asked, concern in her voice. Zagil sighed once more.
Ulvan.
She walked over to him, her voice urgent.
We will need your guidance now more than ever.
Ulvan, enough,
Zagil said, and Ulvan stopped.
Pedus will need time to get the matriarch out. He won't be able to do that with these marauders right behind him.
Zagil glanced at the door behind him. The invaders were even closer, the steady march of the boots now echoing into the atrium. Ulvan crossed the room and stood beside him. Her voice was gentle.
We both know that's not really why.
I cannot do it again. I will not run away a second time. It will fall to the rest of you to reclaim our lands.
I gotta give you more credit here, Pyrite. That is such masterful. I keep using masterful. I'm sorry. That is so good. It's not good enough. Masterful is the only word. It is such a good way to hook the listener / reader in, because I will not run again. Immediately my thought is, what the fuck made him run in the first place? I want to know that story.
But I will not abandon our home. Not again.
He saw understanding in his granddaughter's eyes and smiled.
Besides, my dear Ulvan, someone has to greet our guests.
Ulvan's eyes grew cloudy.
Great line.
You old fool.
She groaned.
Go, my dear.
With that, Ulvan vanished in an outcry of bright light. Zagil took a deep breath and walked to the center of the atrium. With crooked staff in hand, he pulled his hood over his head and waited. As he did, he looked at the astral projection high above him, the display he had built. How fond of it he was. He had spent centuries completing it, making sure each star burned in the correct spot. How proud he had been when he had completed it. He had never expected it would be his tomb. He let out a dry laugh.
Who could ask for a better mausoleum?
The atrium doors swung open and the invaders marched in. At the head walked Lord Sigrid Imperiosus with 3 honor guard at his side.
Oh, now you're brave enough.
Zagil looked up from beneath his hood.
It has been a long time since House Perpetuum received guests within these walls. Longer still since I was the one to greet them.
Sigrid met his glare.
Zagil, the Void Spinner.
His forces lined up behind him, blades drawn and shields before them.
Do you wish to surrender? I could use someone of your capabilities.
Zagil gave a hoarse laugh.
Is that how you convince Sargal?
Sigrid glanced at the astral projection up above.
I imagine the riches helped, but no. It was the recognition of his abilities that convinced him. Yes, well, he always was the egotist.
Zagil cradled his staff under his arm and clapped his hands together dramatically.
You two must get along swimmingly.
Sigrid's eyes snapped back to the
My
ancient
man
demon,
rage
his
baiting
brow
in his
furrowing.
last moments.
Join me, Spellweaver, and you can have back that glory and prestige your house so misses. Or you can resist and die.
Zagil ignored the threat and continued, his voice dripping with contempt.
Oh, I will not be joining you. But tell me, Lord, when the dust settles, what will you have gained from this invasion? You spent all these lives on what? One single keep and a sliver of territory?
Sigrid's scowl deepened.
You know exactly why I'm here. Did you think you would get away with it without anyone noticing? The Hellbeast of Perpetuum will never be allowed to return. Your house will never return. House Imperiosus is the true power now.
Zagil let out a hearty laugh.
Lord Sigrid, is that fear I hear?
Pirate, you had a fucking blast voicing this, didn't you?
Are you afraid of what we will do once the Hellbeast returns?
Zagil's eyes burned with ancient fury.
You should be.
Sigrid cut him off.
We destroyed your pathetic house once before, broke your grip on power, and left you a bleeding corpse.
The Lord took a breath and composed
And yet here I stand, bitch!
himself.
And now, history repeats itself.
you're
Zagil's
gonna fail again.
contemptuous smile faded, and he glared at the invader, the fury of House Perpetuum clear on his ancient features.
Do not dare to speak to me of history. child of Imperiosus. I was there when the Demon King betrayed us. I was there when your house and all the others turned your talons upon us like the vultures you are. You think history is repeating itself? I promise you it is.
Segrid scoffed and waved a hand dismissively.
Yes, you're going to proclaim that House Perpetuum will rise from the squalor we left you in and reclaim your eternal glory? Your house is naught but dirt and ash. A footnote in the texts. What hope do you have? We are without number.
At his word, the legion of demons at his back raised their swords and marched forward, passing their lord and bearing down on the lone spellweaver. Zagil, spellweaver of House Perpetuum, and the one known as the Void Spinner, glared at his approaching foe.
And I am without mercy.
His red eyes flashed to pure black, and his staff dissolved in his hand. He reached out with his mind to the place between dimensions. His hands gripped the space before him, and, without even a word, reality tore open. Void energy shot out as a beam and smashed into the oncoming lines. The first 3 ranks of legionaries dissolved on impact. The next rank stepped over the barely recognizable remnants of their comrades. Zagil opened another 2 rifts in the air before him, and the black energy shot forth, burning into the flanks of the approaching shield wall. The spellweaver held out his hands and, grunting with effort, pulled them inward, willing the portals to follow. The 2 beams sliced in like shears, bisecting the lines of demons as the blades of dark energy closed in towards Segrid. Shields bearing gold and green colors slammed down around the Lord. The void energy dispelled on contact, sending a wave of violent feedback into Zagil's outstretched arms. The spellweaver let out a surprised gasp and was sent back, falling to one knee. Before him, a new group of legionaries lined up, spanning the entire width of the circular room. They were different from those before. Each one wielded a throwing spear, and their gold and green shields were lined with inlaid carvings. Their very presence clouded Zagil's mind, filled his mind's eye, which viewed the battlefield from above, with static. Segrid looked to one of the demons who had shielded him, the flaming crest of Nightmare Mane atop his helm marking his station.
Centurion Rannick, bring me his head.
The Centurion nodded and walked to the front of his formation. Behind him stood the signifier. The tall standard in his hand displayed a great horned beast and glowed with magical energy. The Centurion raised his spear and cried,
"First century! Forward!"
An officer at the back of the wide formation echoed the order, and the legionaries marched forward as one. Zagil stood, opened a new rift, and let it go to prevent the inevitable feedback from hitting him a second time. The void energy spewed out toward the Centurion.
Shields!
The Centurion shouted and raised his shield along with the rest of the front 3 ranks. The instant the beam hit the shields, it collapsed, sending feedback into the rift and closing it. The anti-magic runes inlaid into the dark wood shields glowed with power. Zagil, untouched by the spell's collapse, scowled.
Runes. Fine. Then how about this?
Reaching forward, Zagil poured magical power into the space before him, and it began to glow with dark energy. The Void Spinner weaved his hands around the black orb, like a spider spinning silk. It grew larger as he suffused it with more and more power. The room around him flared, the blue glow of the astral gallery growing bright as it empowered him and allowed him to pierce the veil of anti-magic that interfered with his mind. The orb of magical energy began to twitch and warp in his arcane grip, and he released it. It shot out, splitting in 2 and halting high in the air between the opposing forces, and then opened. From the darkness, long, skeletal hands emerged, reaching out and gripping the edges of the tears in reality. Kotos and Dracaina, the twin Void Titans, pulled themselves free from the void. Starlight exploded out as they landed on the atrium floor, blasting both Zagil and the invaders back. The Titans' bodies were long, chitinous forms, like that of centipedes made of solidified darkness, with rows of skeletal arms and hands as legs. Their heads were gigantic skulls that twitched and rotated unnaturally as they looked at the prey they towered over. Zagil steadied himself and reached out with his mind. The Titans felt his intrusion, and their heads twisted around and locked eyes with him. The ancient demon flared with power as he took hold of the great Titans. The two monstrosities of the void groaned and clawed at their heads as Zagil imprinted his will upon them. The pair unleashed a telepathic scream directly into Zagil's mind, and he recoiled, barely staying upright. Despite the Titan's struggle, however, Zagil maintained his focus, and, at last, the pair stopped writhing and turned to face the invaders. Kotos gave a terrible, screeching cry that shook the entire keep, and together they launched forward, taloned forelimbs extended and grasping. The first two ranks of demons locked their shields together, forming a solid sheet of protection. From his place behind the Centurion, the signifier raised his standard, and it shone with power. In the next moment, a wall of golden light projected before the shields. The two Titans slammed into the warded formation with a thunderous crash and recoiled back, screeching in pain and fury. The demons before them were unharmed, and before the twins could recover, the row behind the shield wall threw their spears. The weapons flew into the beasts. Most deflected off the great chitin plates that covered them, but a few found their marks and plunged into the dark flesh. Kotos swiped viciously at the ward. Each time his talons ripped small tears into the wall of light. Dracaina coiled back, opened her massive mouth, and let loose a blast of void energy. It exploded against the wall, shaking the keep and showering starlight over the legionaries. The blast had opened only a small hole, but Kotos lunged forward, grabbed the slowly closing edges, and pulled the barrier open. Dracaina took the opportunity her twin had provided and crawled in. The great beast landed in the midst of the formation, crushing armored demons.
I gotta stop there. The mental image alone of ripping a hole through a shield wall, a magical shield wall, and then grabbing it and forcing it back open. Oh my fucking god.
Beneath it. Those legionaries surrounding her charged and began hacking at her limbs. She swiped at them with her many clawed hands, twisting to hit as many as possible. The anti-magic shields wielded by the demons were useless as Dracaina tore through them. Kotos tried to follow his twin in, but the barrier slipped from his grasp and closed. The beast screamed as he watched his twin fight without him. He reached back and slammed his forelimbs against the barrier over and over. The formation of demons split into two groups, those spearing Kotos outside the barrier and those fighting Dracaina within. The front ranks, led by Centurion Ronak, ignored the fierce fighting behind them and began to wrap around Kotos, bending into a crescent moon shape. Zagil's hands danced, and four unstable rifts opened around the signifier. The legionaries beside the signifier slammed their shields into the portals, forcing them shut. The Spellweaver cursed their reaction time. He had barely been able to open the portals within the anti-magic interference in the first place. He needed that signifier taken care of. Kotos was covered in throwing spears that had found gaps in his armor, and Dracaina was already bleeding heavily from the many wounds that scored her limbs. The latter let loose a blast of void energy, but it dissolved against the shields. Zagil knew these creatures were tough, but these legionaries were doing far more damage than expected. Suddenly, 3 throwing spears shot towards Zagil. He waved his hand and the weapons vanished, reappearing behind the large formation and spearing 3 unwitting legionaries through the back. Were it not for the anti-magic interference, he would have simply sent them into the signifier, or perhaps Sigurd himself. A thought occurred to Zagil, and he opened a small rift and sent a blast of concentrated magical energy into the barrier. The blast exploded in a shower of sparks.
It's not anti-magic.
Zagil cast his mind's eye to a different region of the void. He swiped his hands before him, and the air far above the battle rippled. He reached out, took hold of the fabric of the universe, and ripped it apart. Green energy poured from the great tear and shot down toward the battle below. It cast the room in a sickly glow. The signifier saw this and raised the standard above him, spreading the barrier over the top of the now 2 formations. Zagil smiled. The barrier shattered on impact, the null beam sapping it of all energy before dissipating. Kotos exploded forward, leaped over the formation that encircled him, and shot straight toward the signifier. His talons skittered and tapped furiously on the stone floor as he closed in on his target. The signifier tried to bring the standard back down, to recast the ward, but before he could, he was separated from his legs with one snap of Kotos' sawtoothed jaws. The legionaries around the late signifier were sent flying by the Titan, as it carried on toward its embattled twin. Before Kotos broke free of the formation, Centurion Ronak threw his spear, and it gave a sonic crack, ripping through the air and pinning the rearmost segment of Kotos into the brick. The beast reared up and roared, coiling around his pinned tail and slamming his enormous fist down on the Centurion. Ronak sidestepped the crashing blow and grabbed hold. He pierced his sword into the bony forelimb and hauled himself on. Kotos tried to shake the demon off, but the Centurion held his grip, his flaming crest rippling violently. As the limb leveled out for an instant, the Centurion left his sword behind and was gone, charging toward the segmented body. Kotos tried to twist his arms around, to slap at the demon sprinting toward his head, but the legionaries surrounding him had grabbed onto his limbs and, by sheer force of numbers, held them in place. Twisting his head unnaturally, the Titan opened his still bloody jaw and shot a barrage of void energy toward Ronak. The first blast the demon sidestepped, the second dissolved on his raised shield. As the Centurion reached Kotos' head, a spear flew through the air before him. Ronak grabbed it and, skidding across the chitin, reached back and launched it straight into the closing mouth of the Void Titan. The spear ripped into the flesh within the gaping maw and through the bone on the other side, severing its spine.
You just fucked up.
The beast recoiled, his limbs spazzing and twitching as nerves misfired. Finally, he collapsed, dead. Centurion Ronak nodded to the legionary below who had thrown him the spear. Zagil watched in stunned horror. He tried to will himself to cast something, to do anything, but his concentration was momentarily shattered, his mind no longer cast to the void. An ear-splitting cry shook the very mountain. Pillars upon which the roof of the atrium sat quaked as Dracaina dove for her fallen twin. She was on the Centurion in an instant, smacking him aside and looking down at her motionless sibling. She reached out with a cracked and bloodied forelimb and nudged Kotos. When he didn't rise, she let out a long, mournful wail and, grasping her twin's lifeless head, opened her jaw and bit down into it. The entire room froze, processing what they witnessed. On and on the Titan ate, consuming the remains of her twin without hesitation. She snapped bones, cracked chitin, and drank void black blood. The grotesque sounds echoed through the atrium. Even Segrid seemed stunned. Zagil himself didn't know what the Titan was doing, nor why it was doing it.
I didn't know they did that,
he whispered. Centurion Ronak started shouting orders to his legionaries and charged toward the remaining Titan. In the next moment, he was struggling from within her enormous hand. She had moved so fast, it had taken Zagil a moment to notice. The Centurion struggled in the Titan's grip, but she ignored him and continued eating. After Dracaina had devoured half of her late twin's body, she reared up and began to twitch. Her chitinous form started to shift and change. Her skull elongated, and multiple sets of glowing eyes formed in place of the original two. Limbs joined together at the bottom half of her body, shifting into a large, round form.
I'm going to underline what I said before, although I said it for a different reason. By the way, oh, no, wrong one. That one. Yeah, you fucked up.
And 8 long, chitin-plated legs sprouted and planted into the ground. Zagil realized what was happening. This wasn't just an act of twisted void spawn cannibalism. It was an evolution, an apotheosis. The great Titan, with the torso of a 6-armed demon and the body of a greater arachnid, looked at the struggling demon within her grasp. And that was when the many rows of sword-length teeth parted, and she spoke. Insects, the creature said.
Good.
Its voice reverberated throughout the atrium and within the minds of every being in attendance.
Hold
She
on, no,
reached-
fuck that. I want to hear that again. That was really well delivered.
And she spoke.
Insects.
Ooh.
The creature said. Its voice reverberated throughout the atrium and within the minds of every being in attendance. She reached down and rested a hand on her mutilated twin. Kotos began to morph, folding in on his remains until he resembled an enormous skeletal scythe. She picked it up and slammed the end into the brick, sending cracks spidering
Oh, good.
out.
Now she's armed.
I am Drakaina, Warden of the Great Vastness, Keeper of the Deep Void.
Okay, so I promised myself I wouldn't like bring up my own works and my own settings here, but I just need to say one thing. No, stop doing that. I do have my own setting of a void. I'm sure every fantasy author does. I would rather face my void. It is less fucking terrifying because my void is literally just nothing. It doesn't have this fucking thing living in it. Nah, I'm good. I'll take nothing. I will take null.
And I will be your death.
She clenched her fist and crushed Centurion Ronick, sending out a shower of viscera. Then, hands still dripping, she gripped her scythe and launched forward. Zagil watched as Drakaina bisected an entire row of charging legionaries with one swing of her scythe.
Actually, though, I don't have a character in my arsenal, not even Kav'Voth, who's willing to put up with that shit. They hear I will be your death. Nah, you know what? Nah, you win. I'm done. Like, I don't want the Perpetuums that bad. The Perpetuums that bad. I'm good.
He no longer had control of the monster before him. He had felt her rip free of his control when she spoke. So far, it didn't seem to be a problem, and he wasn't going to risk trying to take back control of the Titan. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, recentering his mind. He tried to view the battle through his mind's eye, tried to get a bird's eye view of things. Yet still, his view was full of interference. The anti-magic runes on the shields of the legionaries and the armor of Segret and his honor guard still blocked his sight. But rather than the opaque blanket it had been at the start of the battle, it was now more of a translucent sheet.
The runes are reaching their limits.
Zagil cast his magic sight to the 5 figures standing in front of the far door. They were black, featureless forms, still cloaked from his sight beneath the runes on their armor. No matter what he did, he would need to deal with the runes first. Suddenly, an overwhelming feeling interrupted his focus, a feeling he knew to be danger. His eyes snapped open to see a gleaming blade descending for him. Zagil snapped his fingers and portals opened on either side of him. The sword, along with the arm swinging it, went into the portal on the Spellweaver's left and came out the right. Zagil closed the portal, severing the arm. The legionary's red eyes went wide and he howled with pain. Zagil took a step back while clapping his hands together in front of him. A shimmering rift opened from within the legionary, splitting him down the middle. The screaming stopped, and the 2 halves fell to the ground.
We love weaponized portals in this house. Weaponized portals are such a rare thing. Well done.
2 more swords came at him, one stabbing from his right and one...
Sorry, I know I'm pausing. This is one of the few times I wish I was, a flesh tuber, I think they're called. I was streaming in person. The way that I am leaned forward right now, that I am just almost on the edge of my seat, but I'm just...
Swinging in from the left. Zagil vanished, reappearing 10 steps away, his back against a pillar. He breathed out a sigh of relief. He was lucky he hadn't teleported inside the pillar or floor with all the mental interference. In front of him, a section of 7 legionaries closed the hole in their line and charged after him, shields raised. Evidently, they had split off from the group that killed Kotos and pursued him directly. Zagil berated himself for letting his guard down. His eyes rested on the approaching demons, and he placed a hand against the pillar behind him.
Truly, did you think 7 of you?
He paused and glanced down at the pile of gore they stepped over.
8. rather, would be enough to kill me?
The room shook as the enormous pillar slipped into the open rift beneath it. Another portal opened above the first, and the pillar fell, continuously descending over and over, falling in an endless loop. The legionaries halted their charge, looking from the blur of marble to the spellweaver standing unfazed just in front of it. The rearmost legionary spun his spear in his hand and reached back. Zagil thrust his hand forward, and the top portal aimed at the invaders.
So I am going to finish watching this one, Chin. But I'm not going into part 3 tonight. So we will probably wrap up like an hour early tonight. Okay, yeah, it depends on how fast you shower, I guess. But,
The massive spear of rock shot free of the rift and past the spellweaver. The legionaries turned to mist as the pillar smashed through them. The pillar carried on straight at Segred, as Zagil had planned. The honor guard wearing red scale armor launched forward and split the pillar in two with his great axe, never taking his eyes off the spellweaver. The two halves of stone embedded into the walls beside the Lord, sending up a cloud of dust. Zagil sighed and walked forward. He looked out at the pandemonium before him. Screams and the clanging of metal against chitin echoed through the chamber. As the dust around Segred cleared, Zagil saw more legionaries marching in to reinforce the now beleaguered First Century. Those who remained of the original force surrounded the great Titan. Corpses, reduced to little more than blood, poured from the wounds. The great beast opened her mouth and roared, letting loose a blast of void energy that she swept across the room. Once more it evaporated on raised shields. Zagil could feel the waning power of the runes as his mind's eye grew clearer.
I see we're dropping frames, so give me just a second. I'm going to make sure everything stabilizes first. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm strongly considering moving my inscription stream to Monday and just jumping right back into this tomorrow. Very strongly. I don't want to wait. No, I just noticed it. I happened to catch it when I was actually going to the inscription stream and like hovering over the reschedule button. Yeah, we're still at 7%, but it's dropping. I think we're stabilizing. Yeah, I might. I mean, it's not like I'm in any hurry to get to inscription. Yeah, I absolutely want to just get pantsed repeatedly in front of everybody. Alright, yeah, I think we're stable. Alright, back to it.
She will not last much longer. And so our dance draws to a close.
He could not hide his disappointment as he sent the telepathic message.
Patriarch, forgive me. I'll no longer be there to advise you. It is up to you now.
A female voice answered him.
What? Zagil? What do you...
The spellweaver cut the connection and manifested his gnarled staff. The ancient wood assembled itself, fiber by fiber, until at last the arcane gem blinked back to life at the top. He glanced around himself, and once satisfied he would not be interrupted, closed his once more black eyes and began his chant. The walls echoed his words, and the astral projection turned red. He swept his staff first high over his head, and then low, as though stirring and scooping a thick liquid. And that's exactly what he was doing. Deep within the void, dark power began to churn, rotating against itself, spinning and sparking in agitation. Thunder rippled across the space between dimensions as white-hot lightning shot through the growing clouds of nebulae. Dracaena stopped mid-swing and shivered, looking from the three demons she held within her grasp to the glowing spellweaver. Zagil opened his eyes, and starlight spilled from them. He turned his staff skyward, and reality began to twist. The fabric of space rippled as distant thunder pounded from the other side. One of the honor guards shot from Segred's side, clearing the distance in mere seconds, and leapt for him, great axe raised. Red lightning ripped from the sky. It tore through the air and crashed into the descending demon. Before the runes in his armor could activate, the blast had already thrown him, and he slammed into the wall far to the right of Zagil. The air above them shattered. Chunks of reality fell away as void lightning smashed through the barrier between worlds and fell upon the invaders. Shields rose to defend, and runes burned. The two honor guard around Segrid shielded him with their armored bodies. Red clouds of nebula descended from the break in reality, and the void storm filled the room with thunder. Lightning continued to spider out, slamming into the formation of shields. Each streak of red light collapsed upon contact, sending feedback into the storm. Only this time, the tear didn't close. Rather, the reversal of energy only made the storm more violent. Blazing solar winds swept down and slammed against all those who stood against the anger of the void. The legionaries' skin blistered from within their armor. The demons who had just entered the atrium burned to ash under the bombardment, completely lacking any form of anti-magic protection. Dracaina shrank back as void lightning crashed down around her. Zagil ignored the torturous pain of his boiling skin and continued to will the storm to turn, pouring more of his power into the vortex. The lightning showered down upon them like rain, and the legionaries began to falter, each thunderous blast bringing them closer to the brick. The runes burned white. The brick beneath their feet began to crack and melt. The legionaries screamed as the runes burned out. Zagil could feel his power ebbing away, and he struggled to keep his burning arms raised. Suddenly, an axe flew at him, tumbling end over end as it sliced through the air. Zagil saw it coming and cast a portal. The axe sliced through it, carvings etched into its glowing blade. Zagil didn't have time to react, and the axe cleaved through his right arm and lodged into the brick behind him. His staff fell to the ground, still grasped by his right hand. Zagil staggered back and fell. He hit the ground hard. The storm calmed, and, with a few last outbursts, faded completely. The tear in the fabric of reality healed its wound.
Okay, I have to... I'm sorry, I was... Fuck. I gotta say, that is a really, really, really well done use of... I don't want to say anticlimax, but kind of. Where it just builds and builds and builds, and then, fuck you, nothing. It is so perfect. Again, it's the same feeling that you get in part one, where you're feeling that flow, that energy of the battle, and you know everything's working, everything's great, and it just builds you up and builds you up, and then just cuts the knees out from under you. Perfect.
The Astral Gallery's light, which had burned for centuries, faded out. The remaining legionaries rallied as a second honor guard walked from Segrid's side and took command of the disorganized forces. Dracaina looked up at the opening above her, then at the honor guard walking toward her. She raised her scythe and roared out a challenge. In the next moment, her head hit the brick, separated from her body by the swing of a great axe. Her body twitched as it fell. The same honor guard now stood behind her, wiping void black blood from his axe. Zagil watched this from the ground where he lay. He was barely conscious. His whole body felt numb. He saw past memories, the time before, when House Perpetuum was the greatest of all. He saw when they assisted House Diabolos in uniting the realm. And he saw when they were betrayed by the Demon King they put on the throne. Zagil slowly lifted himself up. His one charred arm shook under the strain as he got back to his feet. All eyes turned to the lone demon.
I am Zagil,
he whispered. Blood dripped from the stump of his right arm as his heart pounded with effort.
I am not dead yet.
The astral projection flared back to life, growing brighter and brighter until the room glowed with power. He stood up straight, his eyes ablaze with eons of fury, and, voice bolstered with magic, he declared,
I am Zagil, the Void Spinner, Spellweaver of House Perpetuum. Let us greet death together.
Zagil reached forth, hand extended toward the fallen Dracaina, fingers splayed out. Energy sparked around the beast. The closest to Honor Guard ran for him.
Collapse,
He whispered, and closed his hand. The Void Titan, a being of condensed void energy, began to shake and twist as the singularity deep within her began to pull her apart. The black hole grew larger, and crushing force pulled everything near it in. Legionaries were ripped apart as they fell past the event horizon. Segrid pulled his sword and drove it into the brick, holding himself in place. The Honor Guard with him, and the one who killed Dracaina, did the same with their axes. The last one, however, no longer had his axe in hand, and he was dragged across the atrium, straight toward the black hole. He grasped wildly, but his gauntleted hands found no purchase. His already burnt-out runes did nothing as he was pulled into the abyss. Zagil watched as the atrium around him was torn apart, as the astral gallery was pulled into the crushing sphere like the death of a star.
goodbye, my lovely.
He opened his hand, and the orb turned from black to white.
Supernova.
God damn, Pyrite. Yeah. Actually speechless. That is phenomenal. Yeah, fuck it. We're rescheduling. We're going back to this tomorrow. I know you told me! And I told you I wanted to give it all the attention it deserved. Fuck. Moment. One. Alright. Yeah, we're coming back to this tomorrow. Fuck my schedule. Again, thank you guys for letting me. This is your work, and I'm honored to be able to spread it further, alright? And I mean that wholeheartedly, legitimately, no exaggeration. Fuck. Yeah. I am out. I have no words. Like, legitimately. Having other people react to it, Pyrite. And I bet, like, I'm yeah. I need a minute. You know what? I'm actually going to take a very short break because I'm probably going to wrap up here too. But I need a minute to get my thoughts in order. So, give me just a second. So, I'll be back. Where? That's right. That's what I was doing. No, not that one. Not that one either. There we go. All right. So, give me just a minute. I'll be right back. And we are going to head over here. Head to break. All right. So I have gotten my thoughts together again. I think the reason, other than just sheer quality, that section, chapter, whatever you want to call it, hits me so hard. In addition, again, quality. It's the only word that comes to mind. Quality in every aspect. Narration, music choice, the act. Thank you. And yes, Matriarch, even your, like, I know it's just a pan back, but the timing on the pan back is so perfect. Everything works. But the other reason that it hits me so much is it lands on the two aspects that I find are my weakest points in writing, which is combat scenes and creature design. And you blew both of them out of the park. Like, it's not even close. It just works. Yeah. But actually, though, everything comes together perfectly. Yeah, I'm still a little speechless. The designs, not only like the physical designs, not only like the creature shape, but there's little hints of lore and design even to the Void Titans. And again, Zagil, yeah, 100%. Zagil is the GOAT. I firmly agree. Of course, I'm sure a lot of people make the same joke. It's like, of course he's a GOAT. Look at the horns. No. Okay, so it's not just me. Good, because damn, I'm peeking my mic a bit. Sorry. There we go. Yeah, I will wrap up early tonight because I need to give. I'm kind of surprised because it's the first thought that came to my head. Unpinning the channel, the links to the videos are in the description, but I am reposting them right now. So throw them a like, please. They deserve it. Fuck this stream. Go like them. Yeah. I would go right. You kind of did a little bit. Little fucking bit. I would roll right into part 3, but I know I want to give it the attention it deserves, you know. And so yeah, fuck my schedule. I was gonna do Inscription tomorrow. Fuck that. That's moving to Monday. We're getting right back to this tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a bit longer because we will finish up the Fall of Eternity. So, even playing my outro music feels like an insult to what we just saw. Like, good lord. Pyrite, I need you to hear me right now. As the final boss of the internet, as the Lord of Frostgrave, finish Zagil's book. Because I need to not only finish it, hold at least one copy for us. We will be buying it. And because we're going to be on the ground floor. So, that... We're all Pyrite fans here, alright? It's going to be... Yeah, it really is going to be amazing. And I'm pretty sure Math's going to want her own copy too. So... Frozen edition. Yeah, I'm still reeling. That was amazing, and I'm glad that I gave it the full attention it deserves. I have had, you know, well, I mean, even y'all said just put it on in the background while you're doing other things. No, fuck that. It deserves full attention. If I had that on in the background, I would have stopped doing whatever I was doing anyway. All right. Hell, isn't that when I almost burned my the meal? Yeah, when I was listening to part 1, it made me almost burn my food. So there you go. You've got 2. So, yeah, it's gonna be an early night, which it works. Last night went long anyway. I am still gonna raid. We are gonna raid out still. We could go back to Hiro. Looks like we don't have a choice. Hiro's the only person I got that is streaming, so. Yes, absolutely. Matriarch, did you sent me the link to the do you have Gupoi's link so I can link them? I'm going to relink the music. Matter of fact, yeah. Where is it? No, not that tab. There it is. Oh, okay. Hiro is actually, she's just got sleeping going on right now, so I'm just gonna have to let you guys go. And perfect. I already know how I'm spending my night. I'm getting a little bit. I'm getting writing done. I have to now. Like it's I don't have a choice. So thank you everyone for watching. We will be back to this tomorrow. I don't care how long it takes. We're wrapping it up tomorrow. And yeah. So, take care, everybody. And take care of each other. I know pretty much everyone here has probably already... Again, I said it multiple times. I'll say it again. Thank you guys for putting that into the world, for letting me react to it. Thank you. And take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. And as always, remember that you are... that you are the greatest treasures that could be given to a dragon. And stay golden.